Hello YouTube, this is Corvette Kunas, and I'm just gonna talk about talk about purchasing tubas, or if you're looking to buy a tuba, things you should know about tubas before you buy them, before you look at them, or should expect before you play them. We're gonna talk about certain characteristics of a tuba, the overall size of the horn, the valve bore, the valve style, the mouthpiece, certain mouthpiece effects, how that affects the horn. Talk all about all that in a short little video here. Starting us off, we're going to talk about the size. Tubas come in primarily in 4 different sizes. The most common size is what we call 4/4 or full-size tubas. There are 3/4, 5/4, and 6/4, which is what this horn is. This is a 6/4. It's about 50% larger than the average tuba, which yields it, generally speaking, the largest size tubas are going to produce a more warm sound quality with more depth in the low end of the horn. And you'll notice it's not quite as focused sounding. These horns aren't known for being focused sounding. Big horns are usually more broad sounding, whereas a 3/4 or a full size horn is going to sound more compressed with more core to the sound. It really depends on what kind of ensemble you're playing in. It's really depend. Really, I'm tired. All right, moving on. We're moving back. If you didn't, we're starting at the bell, moving our way back. We're going to go all the way around to the valve section. All right, the valve section is the most important part of the entire horn. All the intonation magic happens at the valve section with the slides and the valves themselves. Everything, the entire control cluster of the instrument is in the valve section, which includes the tuning slide, the valves, the tuning slides for each valve, and so on and so forth. This is where all of the magic happens. Generally speaking, valve bore affects the way the horn plays. A large bore, valve bore, is a valve tubing bore will yield a more free-blowing instrument. But the more free, you don't want to get too free-blowing, because if it's too free-blowing, then you're going to run out of air real fast. But if it's too restricted, then it's going to be hard to play with a decent sound. And trust me, it's hard. A stuffy instrument is not something I am very fond of. So basically, you want to go for a good balance. In some cases, you may not have that option. You know, this is a .750 or a 70 3/4 of an inch. The valve bore is 3/4 of an inch, which means it's pretty free blowing. But you can get smaller valve bore if you so choose. Different types of valves are also available. You have piston valves like these, front action pistons. You have top action pistons, which are usually located right here. And you have front action rotaries, which, if you don't know what rotaries are, they're basically paddles, like the French horns, and you just press them down to tip. And they're usually a bit easier to press down than pistons, but I find they don't respond quite as fast as a piston valve can. And there's less moving parts on piston valves as well. Only one moving part is the piston itself, whereas rotary valves have 3 moving parts: the paddle, the linkage, and the actual rotary valve itself. So less moving parts means less to go wrong, and also less maintenance on the valve itself. The only thing is that piston valves do require more oiling, so just keep that in mind. For the most part, yeah, you don't really have to oil all that much. If you play it regularly, you won't have to oil it all that much, because just continuing to play it will keep it well lubricated. Same with slides. Don't let them sit for too long. You move them every once in a while, and they'll stay nice and slick. But yeah, valve style is basically all preference. It's a preference of what do you like best. The only way to know is to try it. But again, valve bore. The bigger the valve bore, the more free blowing it's going to be. The smaller the valve bore, the more stuffy it's going to be. But that's not the only factors to consider. You also have to consider the bends of the piping is also a consideration. Tight bends will also make it more stuffy, whereas more open wrap pipe will make it more free blowing. So keep that in mind as well. But generally speaking, a valve bore will give you a general idea of how free blowing it's going to be. And if it's too free blowing or too stuffy, there's only one solution. Going up the lead pipe, going up the lead pipe to the mouthpiece. Yes, the mouthpiece is another control factor of the horn. It is actually one of the most important control factors because it determines your depending on the mouthpiece can extend your low range, extend your high range. It can also fine tune the blowing resistance of the horn with the throat. For example, a small throat. Oh, well, let me just explain what the parts of the mouthpiece are. You have the cup, which could be either a funnel or a bowl shape, this is a bowl shape, and the rim size, which is basically the rim diameter, is basically, or cup diameter, I should say, is this. This is going to determine basically how easy it'll be to play in the low range or the upper register. A smaller cup diameter will yield more upper register results, whereas a larger cup or a wider cup will give you better low range. The hole back here is known as the throat. The smaller the throat, the less air can pass through to the horn, which is good for a large horn, maybe such as this. It restricts the airflow and gives you a little bit more endurance, and it gives you a bit more, I wouldn't say endurance, but basically you save your chops more and your lungs as well. Then you have the back bore, which is basically this. This is the back bore. Then you have shank size, which could be either larger than this, smaller, or really small. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And to show you what a funnel cup is, it's my dirty mouthpiece here. This is a funnel. As you can see, it's almost like there's no sort of break at the bottom. It's just smooth right into that throat. That's usually one of the prime characteristics of a funnel mouthpiece. Whereas a bowl shape, like say this one right here, there's like a sudden turn down there into the throat. That's a bowl shape. But yeah, I'm going to do a quick overview. Larger the horn, the more mellow and deep it's going to sound. Smaller the horn, the more tight and focused it's going to sound. The larger the valve bore, the more free blowing it's going to be. Smaller, more stuffy. You also need to note that you need to balance that stuffiness and free blowingness properly, otherwise you'll be killing yourself or you'll be trying too hard to make it sound worth anything. Piston valves, front action pistons are great. They offer the ability to use the left hand to tune the slides during play. Same with front action rotaries, same thing. Top action pistons make it quite difficult to fine tune the instrument while you're playing because of the way the valves are situated. The horn's orientation is to the bells on the other side, so it's a bit more difficult to tune. But generally speaking, a good upright piston horn will play mostly in tune. Will play in tune very well without having to tune any of the slides. So, if they're made properly. But yeah, and the mouthpiece can also fine-tune the playing characteristics of your instrument. This is Corvette Kunas, and if you're new to buying tubas, and you're not sure what to buy, then leave a comment and I'll try to answer your question as best I can. Also, if I can't answer your question, go check out TubeNet forums. Lots of guys there that'll be able to answer your questions. This is Corvette Kunas signing out.